1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome to part 2. So most of these melodies are going to very strongly outline the chords that are underneath. So the more familiar you are with those chords, the better. Last week we covered all of those in depth, so do go back and check that out if you haven't already. One of the best ways to map out the fretboard with all of your chord tones is to use triads and arpeggios. So for this first phrase, there's a couple of nice little things we can think about. First of all, we want to be seeing this F major triad. Think of that as a second inversion F major triad. We have the fifth, the root, and the third. The phrase starts on the fifth, little side step away and back to the note. Then we grab the root, a neighbouring tone, the second degree of the scale, up to the third. Then we come back down to the root. This time we grab the flat 7 because we're about to resolve to B flat. So we're implying F to F7 to B flat, all within one phrase. This note, as well as being the root of the F, is now really harmonically functioning as the fifth of the B flat chord. Make sure you're analysing every note in relation to the chord above it. Then while we're on this B flat chord, we're going to grab the third, go back to the fifth, bounce back and forth between them. The chord has then returned back to F, where those same two notes represent the root and the sixth. Remember that adding the sixth is one of those essential elements of the swing language. For our next phrase, we're still seeing this F major triad. We spot the third up on top there. We approach it from a semitone below, minor to major third. Very typical in the blues. Root, sixth. Take note of the fact that if we play a D minor triad over an F major chord, we're adding the sound of the sixth again. So you can just find your minor triad off the sixth degree of your scale, play licks from there, and you're going to be bringing in that flavour of the sixth on the major chord. Okay, so now you've got next phrase. Okay, so thinking of B flat 7, because we're in bar number 4 now. Some interesting stuff there. The major 7th, which you wouldn't immediately think would sound great, but you can tell it's really just a passing note up to the root, down to the 5th, the flat 7, back to the root. So we're mostly spelling out notes from a B flat 7 arpeggio. Then we play this nice little melody, which takes us to some of the key notes from an F7 chord. Root, flat 7, root, 5th. The next phrase, this is one of those killer Charlie Parker phrases that you can take out from this piece and put it in everywhere in jazz because it's a 2-5. He was the king of vocabulary on this stuff. A minor 7 to D7, he plays this amazing phrase, resolves it to the G minor. So if we're thinking A minor 7, he starts off with the 5th, the flat 7, then he slides in, again that bluesy thing of going in from a minor third to a major third on the D7 chord, F to F sharp, grabbing the flat 9, just like we did in our chord progression. A minor 7, D7 flat 9, still on D7, flat 7, walking up to connect up to the fifth of the G minor that we've just landed on. A minor, D7, G minor. Whilst on the G minor, we play this great little phrase. Now there's elements of a line cliche happening within there. If we think about line cliche being your G minor chord or G minor triad, and the root descending in semitones, if we track that motion within this phrase, there's the root, down a semitone, down a semitone again. We're getting all of those elements, the root, the major 7 and the flat 7. And then we play the simplest phrase in the whole thing, just an F major scale descending. Back to our two-note motif, the root and the sixth. If you want to get hold of the lesson materials for this, please do check out my Patreon page at the link in the description. There you'll have access to all of my lesson materials for this lesson, last lesson, all lessons going back and all lessons going forward. So let's do a playthrough with the metronome, and let's return to what we spoke about last week, having the metronome clicking on beats 2 and 4 only. I'm setting the metronome to 135 BPM, which is a nice practice speed. Then I'm going to mute beats 1 and 3. Get the foot tapping on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you can hear how that really helps us to feel where the swing is and where the accent lies. Okay, now let's do the same thing again, but at the full speed of 165 BPM. Get the metronome going. Mute beats 1 and 3. Try and tap the foot on 2 and 4. Really feel where that pulse is. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how on that second time round I threw in an extra bit of ornamentation on one of the phrases, just to get more of that Charlie Parker essence in there. I feel like some of his saxophone slurs really make the phrases pop. Where did we add it? Yeah, here we go. So that was just a little trill from the root to the 9 and back, or root to the 2nd and back. It's also worth practicing this at a super slow tempo and working on exaggerating the swing feel as much as you can and playing right in the pocket, maybe even without the metronome. Let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great for practicing your swing feel and for staying right in the pocket. So as always with this stuff, make sure you're playing it really cleanly at slow tempos and then work the speed up, retain that lovely lazy swing feel, give it some good dynamic punch on those offbeats now and then. It's really good to try and strike the strings nice and true as well. Favour downstrokes wherever possible. Maybe even try and work a few rest strokes in there if you want to get that real authentic old school swing jazz vibe. In case you're wondering what that is, a rest stroke is where you strike the string with enough force via a flick of the wrist that you can get to the string underneath and rest on it with the pick. So if I'm hitting the G string, I'm going to hit it with enough force from the wrist that the pick rests on the B string at the end of the strike. It's really good to help make certain notes pop out. And you can hear it in the playing of people like Charlie Christian and Django Reinhardt very clearly. So if you have any questions, please do put them down in the comments below. Or if you just want to talk about Charlie Parker and your favourite tunes, go for it. Let's get some conversation going. Next week, we'll have a look at some simple ways to play solos over these changes and how to navigate a jazz blues 12-bar when you're improvising. So do work on last week's material and this week's material in the meantime. And I'll see you next week. Hopefully Louis will make another appearance. He's been lazing about all day because it's so hot here at the minute. See you next time.